Alrighty, also 8.6, the last section for this test. And this deals with polynomial inequalities. So remember, my inequalities, I'm talking about my less than, greater than, and all that fun stuff. So I just want to refresh y'all when we're dealing with inequalities and interval notation. Interval notation, if it's just a less than or greater than, you want to use curly parentheses. If it's got an equals in it, you're going to use brackets. Okay? All right, so the steps to solving polynomial inequalities. Remember, since these are greater than and less than, we could have many answers for these. Because a lot of things will make an equation greater than or less than, okay? So, first thing I do to these, probably 95% of these, I get my polynomial on one side equal to 0. So I'm going to set the polynomial equal to 0. And solve. Okay, so we've been doing that all year, right? Setting all these quadratics equal to 0, solving them for the variables. So this is where these are different. So let me get one more in real quick, y'all. Hard catching them as they're coming in. So at this point, what I do to these problems, once I got those two answers, I'm going to set up a number line. So set up a number line using the two solutions. So I'll have a number line coming across here. And at the moment, I'm just going to call my solutions A and B. So I'm going to get two answers out of most of these. So I'll set up a number line using the two answers. Now, on these problems, they're either going to shade in between the two answers or they're going to shade outside of the two answers, okay? But you never get three sections in a row that are all shaded or that are not shaded, okay? So, what I do at that point, I find a test point to test my intervals. So, find the test point. To check the intervals. Now, I'm going to tell y'all what. I usually use 0 for my test point because it's the easiest number to throw into these polynomials and get answers out of. Okay? So, if the test point is true, we shade that area. If it's false, it does not get shaded. Alrighty, so, and I'll show you. Our answers will come two ways. So say I tested in between A and B and that was true, then I would shade in between A and B, and my interval answer would be from A to B on that, okay? Or my answers could come as false in the middle. If it's false in the middle, that means it's going to shade the outsides. So if it's true for the outsides, your intervals will start at negative infinity and go to the first number, and then we'll union from the B to a positive infinity. So you're either going to get it to shade in the middle or shade to the outsides, okay? All right, so once we've done that and got it shaded, we're going to write the answers in interval notation. So interval notation. So one thing to watch for on these. If we only get one solution when solving the polynomial, then that is the only number excluded from the domain. So you would get that case, say I was factoring something and I got an x plus 2 and an x plus 2 as my factors, which would be a repeating factor. If you get a repeating factor, then you're only going to get one solution, and that's the only number we'll kick out of the domain. So we'll go from negative infinity to that number, union, and then from that number to positive infinity, okay? All right, the only other thing you got to watch out for. If the polynomial does not factor, now if you're using the quad on this, so if the polynomial does not factor, or if we get radical or imaginary answers on quad, so radical or imaginary. So if it doesn't factor or you get radical or imaginary answers on quad, then it's a no solution. Now, MATLAB don't have a choice B that says no solution. What you got to do in MATLAB, if it's a no solution on these problems, is they'll give you a circle with a line through it, and that means no solution or empty set, okay? All right, so the main thing is going to be solving them. And then just testing where our point is. And I'll use I'll use 0 every time, because these polynomials are going to have x's everywhere. And when you put a 0 in for x, that is a big 0, right? Sort of like when you're taking them x values on the graphs. I always use a 0. Sometimes a 1. So yeah, let's work some of these and see what they do. These aren't bad. So the first one says, solve the following inequality. And then I'll show you on the graph what's happening on those, okay? All right, so this number one has a x minus 4, x plus 2, less than 0. So we're really happy when they factor them already for us. So that, I'm just going to take the two factors. Now, I ignore the inequality sign at this point. I'm just going to set these equal to 0 and solve them. And then once I solve them, I'm going to set up my number line, okay? So it looks like we're going to what, add the 4 to the first one? Subtract that one. So I get what, a 4 and a negative 2, right? So I'm going to put them on my number line now. So let's see, negative 2 would be on the left side, and my 4 is on the right side. So my test point will be 0 every time. And I know 0 is in between negative 2 and 4, right? So I'm going to test 0. So to test 0, I'm going to take this equation and put zeros into them x's. So that'll give me 0 minus 4 times 0 plus 2 has to be less than 0. So I get what, a negative 4 out of the first parentheses times a positive 2 out of the second one. So the question is that less than 0, true or false? So that's going to be what, a negative 8?
It is less than 0.
Less than 0, so that is true. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write the number line again so people can follow me that I'm going through the steps. But hell, I'd probably come up here and said, oh, that was true at 0. So I'm going to shade where the 0 was located. Which means anything to the left of that negative 2 and to the right of that positive 4 will make that false. Okay? So y'all, the last thing to do to that, write that answer in interval notation. So, I know it's going to be between that negative 2 and that 4, but I really don't know, do I want curvy parentheses or do I want some brackets?
Curvy parentheses.
Curvy parentheses.
Yeah, so negative infinity.
Oh, you don't need that because remember, you're only shading right here. So this will just go from the negative 2 to the 4. Okay. Now, these ones that shade on the outside will definitely be those infinities. Okay.
I got you. I'm ready to write that.
Oh, that won't be bad. Now, I'll show you what's happening on the graph. So let me graph that on here for my y equals. So that was what, an x minus 4, x plus 2. And then I'm not even worried about the 0. I'm just going to hit graph. So I don't know if y'all can see this online. But there's the graph of that. And I wanted y'all to notice on that graph, since this is less than 0, if you'll look on the graph, in between that negative 2 and that 4, on that graph, it is below the x-axis. Because that's the part that is less than 0. And if you notice, the two ends are above the axis, so those are the numbers coming out this way on your graph, okay? So, I'll just show them that in between negative 2 and positive 4 on the graph, you're below the x-axis, okay? Remember, the x-axis is the 0 on the y's, right? So you can sort of use the graph to help you out on these. Only thing is it won't tell you whether you're using the brackets or the curvy parentheses, okay? All right, y'all, number 2 is an x squared minus 13x plus 40 is going to be greater than 0. So I'm gonna solve mine by factoring, but y'all could hit these with the quad at any point. As long as you got everything set equal to your 0, okay? I like to factor because some of y'all gonna do math another day, right? Business math or something maybe? No? No? There you go. You gotta have to do a little factoring. All right, here we go. Got an X and an X. So what signs would y'all put in on this? Both negative. There you go. I must be catching some of my brain waves actually once in a while in here, right? So factor the 40, that'll give me a 13. That's why I love college algebra. Y'all know the factors better than my support classes. They sit there a while, huh? Now, at this point, I look like this. I'm going to take these two factors, set them to 0, and get my numbers. Now, what's nice is if you are using quad, it's already spitting out what a positive 8 and a positive 5 on this. All right, so I got 8 and 5 for my number line. So let me draw my number line. So 5 will be first, and then the 8. I'm still going to test 0, but y'all, 0 this time is in the first section over here, right? So I know 0 is going to come out of the first section somewhere. So here's the thing. If it's true in the first section, I'll skip the middle section and shade the last section. So if you shade the first, you're automatically going to shade the last section, okay? If it's false here, then the only section I'll shade is the middle. But y'all, here's why I like using zeros, because, hell, that's a 0. That's a 0. So the only question is, 40 bigger than 0, true or false? So I'll write that when I did, but so y'all said 40 greater than 0 was true. So technically, I'm going to shade where 0 was located, skip the middle section, and then shade after the 8. So I guess this one would be one you could start me out at negative infinity. So from negative infinity, you cruise until you hit. So at 5, you want me to go curve or bracket? Curve.
Union.
Then union from the
8. And positive infinity.
and be done with it, huh?
When do you use brackets again?
If I throw an equals up under these little inequalities,
Okay.
the equals mean that number does make that true. Because see, if you put, say, the 5 in here, that'd be 25. Minus 65 will be what, a negative 40? And negative 40 plus 40 equals 0. But on this one, instead, it had to be greater than 0. But if I had the equal on it, then it would make it true at that 5. And then that's when you would use your bracket. All right, so I'll tell you what they're going to do to these. They're just going to change up the type of quadratics they're hitting me with and put more stuff on the right side. So this is an x squared plus 7x minus 22 is greater than or equal to an x minus 6. So where the x minus 6 is, I need a big 0 sitting there. So I'm going to move both of them over. I'm going to subtract the x from both sides. And I'm also going to add a positive 6 to both sides. So no, I just put them over here under where I knew they would add to them. So we'll bring down that x squared. 7 minus 1x is a positive 6x. And then a negative 22 positive 6 is a negative 16. All this is greater than or equal to 0 now. So at this point, quad or factor. And we'll set it all equal to 0. So now I do got an x and an x. All right, so we're still going to mess with you. Signs for this one. Positive and a negative. So anytime the last one's negative, you got unlike signs no matter what.
8 and 2.
8 and 2. And just remember the A, since it's a larger number, always has the same sign as my middle. All right, then, the rest of this ain't bad, is it? Just set these equal to 0. So I'm going to get what, a negative 8? And a positive 2. All right, so number line time. So number negative 8 on that side, and my 2 on the right side. 0 is now, once again, in the middle of these. So number 0 is going to be right here in the middle. Now, I'm not going to lie. If y'all don't like zeros, y'all can pick any other number to test. You can try 1s, but you know 1 would still be here. Or you could even do something like a 3 if you wanted to, or a negative something. Okay.
It will still be in the middle. It will still be in the middle.
Well, if you pick, say, a negative 9, and you're checking it over here to see whether it's true or false, true you would shade, false you would. So it's still the same principle. I just really think these zeros are easier. And I'm even going to plug my 0 into this equation where I got everything moved over. Now you could use this one, but it'd be a little more work. Well, not really, because that'd be a 0, right? And if that's a 0, that'd be 0. So is negative 22 greater than a negative 6? True or false? That'd be false, right? So, I use 0, so I wouldn't shade this, I would shade the outsides. But notice, this will still do that. 0 squared plus 6 times 0 minus 16 is greater than or equal to 0. And that's still false, right? So, since it's false for my 0 in the middle, I'm going to go to the outsides and shade this. And y'all, since it's greater than or equal, if you were to graph this part would be above the line, and then this part in the middle would be below the line. Okay? So, how about interval notation?
Negative infinity to negative 8 bracket.
Damn, that's what I was looking for. That's the first one I had brackets on, right?
And then union
Uh-huh.
and bracket to infinity close bracket.
There you go. Okay. Really don't mind ending up with this after going through them rational functions in 8.5. But some of them toward the end had you finding asymptotes, vertical, horizontal, x-intercepts, y-intercepts, domain. The hell, there was something else that was asking, I can't remember. It was asking a lot of stuff.
It begins with the O.
Oh, no, we don't do the obliques, so that one that says
That's what it was
obliques,
asking for.
you just put no obliques on those. I think the chair, when she was going to problems, she liked them problems, so she had to search for the ones that didn't have the obliques on them. Although I think one of them problems, it was listing the asymptotes, and it had those in there on one of them, so you didn't have to, it wasn't a question specifically, it just had like an A, B, C, D, and it listed the X equals, and then it had the one for the obliques on there, so. Alright, x squared is greater than 9. So this is one of those 5% that I probably wouldn't set equal to 0, because there's another way to solve these ones that's really quick. Oh no, I could move that 9 over and set it equal to 0 and factor that, so that'd be perfect squares. But y'all, there's another way that's really quick when you got just the x squared and a number. I can take square roots of both sides, because I don't have that x term in the middle. So on this one, I can take square roots of both sides. Just remember, when you take the square root of a number, you got to account that it can be a positive or a negative, okay? And that's how you get the two different numbers out of this. So square root of x squared is an x. And that's going to be plus or minus square root of 9. So 3 times 3 is 9 or greater than 12. And then negative 3 times negative 3 would be 9 also, okay? So I got a positive 3 and a negative 3 out of that, okay? Now quad, if you use quad, you want it set up like this. And on quad, A would be 1. B would be 0, and C would be negative 9, okay? The quad and factoring that you always have to have everything on one side equal to the 0. That's why I figured this way is sort of quick. So now let me make that number line. And once again, 0 is right in the middle. I'm going to test 0. So, if I put a 0 in for the x, 0 squared greater than 9. True or false?
False.
Definitely false on that. So I will not shade where the 0 is, and I'm going to shade the outsides. I'll tell you a little trick on these. Most of these x squareds, if they're greater than, they're going to shade outside the numbers. If they're less than, they're going to shade in between them numbers, okay? Especially on these with these x squareds up in that front. So I guess that's ready for my interval.
Open parentheses, negative infinity, negative 3, close parentheses, union, open parentheses, 3, infinity, close parentheses.
Okay. There you go. Okay. So questions yet, anybody? Any questions online, anybody? You're about one of the only people that's ever responded to me off of a Zoom.
I like to talk on it.
I think a lot of times I'll be talking on a Friday, doing catch up with some of my classes, and I really think they log in, and you know you hide your video. Yeah, I don't know if they're there or not, but I'll talk to them, and I'll ask them questions, and I don't get nothing. Crickets, I guess you say. All righty, so number 5, they're going to switch it up on us. 25 minus x squared less than or equal to 0. So now they're just playing with the equations, trying to mess y'all up. So many things y'all can do to that.
You could move the negative 1 over and do the square roots, right?
Bam, that's probably what I would have done. That made that x squared positive by moving it over here. Then I got my x squared and my number, and then hit it with that square root again. Or you could flip the order and try to do some quad stuff to it. Okay? So I'm going to do what he said and just add an x squared to both sides. Because then this will give me 25 less than or equal to my x squared. Which means that the x squared is actually greater than or equal than the 25 because it's opening towards my x squared. just like on that number 4, it was opening towards my x squared. So I would predict this one to do the outers instead of the inners.
I didn't even know that 25 was there. I was thinking it was problem 25 for some reason.
Well, you did it right anyway, so we'll go with that, okay? Now, I will say if you did quads, you want that to be a negative x squared plus 25 equal to 0. So A would be -1, B 0, and C 25. And then quad will knock that out, okay? All right, so let me do the square roots. Remember, at this point, we're not worried about that less than or greater than, because we're taking care of that when we do the test points. So this would be a plus or minus 5, you said? Equal to my x. So I know x is a -5 or x is a +5, okay? So -5 and 5. Once again, I know 0's in the middle. And most of these square root ones, you're going to get two numbers that match other than their signs. So the 0 is always going to be in between those. I can use any equation up here. So 25 minus x squared would be 25 minus 0 squared less than or equal to 0. True or false?
False.
False. All right, so that was what, a -5 and a 5. So since it's false, I cannot shade where the 0 was located. I'm going to shade the outsides. So -infinity to -5, is that going to be bracket? And then union and negative. Okay. So I don't know if this section is actually designed to get you, I mean, it is, I guess, to get you good at the polynomial stuff. But I think it's really designed to keep y'all good at factoring and solving quadratic stuff. But it was nice because every one of these could be done with that quad program.
It is nice.
But here's the question, would y'all all do the quad if it was by hand on all those? Well, I'll be factoring, right? Or square rooting.
Got the old school teachers out there that will make you do that.
Well, I made y'all do that on that second test.
Yeah, you
So I ain't worried about riding it out the rest of this class, you know.
Thank you.
Especially when you're doing synthetic division, finding zeros. The quad knocks them all out really quick on them last two, you know. Because you can't factor stuff and come up with radical type zeros. Those are pretty tricky.
Right.
Oh, this one has everything out of order. I got a 10x minus 25 minus the x squared less than 0. I will say one thing I'm definitely going to do is put this all in order. So I'm going to put that x squared first. And then my what, 10x? And then my minus 25, all less than 0. Now I'm going to factor by hand, but at that point, A would be -1, B would be 10, C would be -25. You can knock that out on the quad. I'm going to factor it, and really to factor this, I don't like my x squared being negative. So I'm going to divide everybody by a -1. I just divided by negative, so what you want me to do with that little inequality? Gotta flip that around for sure. So any division by negative numbers will reverse that, okay? So now, though I get a positive x squared, that's gonna make that a negative 10x. That's gonna make that a positive 25 is greater than my 0. So at that point, you can do it with quad at this point or at this point, either one. You really can't do quad here unless you remember the orders out of order. Okay? So, set it equal to 0 and factor it. So I know there's an x and an x. Both of these signs will be.
Negative.
So factors of 25, it'll equal 10.
5.
Uh-oh. That's one of them repeating ones. So the only thing I'm going to do is set x minus 5 equal to 0 and get me an answer. So I just want to add 5 to both sides to be done, right?
That's how it gets.
So the question is, what did I say I would do when I only get one answer?
Exclude it from the domain.
That's the only one we're going to exclude from the domain. So this will go from negative infinity to the 5. Now, here's the thing on these ones. When you only get one answer, it'll always be curves. Because then if we put brackets, then there would be no answers to exclude. Okay? So, curves and then from 5 to infinity. So that's the only number you're going to kick out of your domain at all. Everything else, when you put it in there, we'll make that true, okay? Oh, we're down to one more.
That's all that's in it. This,
7's all I showed.
yeah, it was 7.
All right, y'all, for number 7, we're going to mix this one up also. I got an x squared plus an a is less than 4x. So I do got the x squared term, the number term, and the x term. So I need everything on one side equal to a 0. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. All right, so let's see what I get. An x squared. I'm going to put my minus 4x, then my a, all less than 0 at this point. All right, so now I can either factor that or hit it with a quad. 1 negative 4, 8 for the quad. So I know that's what, an x and an x. Both of these will be.
Negative.
So how many factors of 8 that'll add to get a 4? Because 8 and 1, 4 and 2. Nothing's going to give me a 4, so this one does not factor. Now, let me see what this does on the quad, because y'all might be messing with me on your factoring, so let me see. So program quad. I would have a 1, negative 4, and an 8. Oh, I'm getting imaginary answers on quad, which means this does not have a solution. So this is a no solution. But y'all remember, MATLAB don't give you the option of saying no solution. It gives you the 0 with the line through it. So the empty set or no solution, okay? I've even seen some math books, they'll do stuff like this. Set parentheses without anything in them means no solution also. So MATLAB's going to do this one to you though, okay? So, and you won't see it until you hit your cursor into the answer blank and click it. Then it pulls up all that stuff on the bottom. And you'll see that 0 there, okay? So that's 8-6. So questions? Probably the mildest section in this test. Just remember on that test, test them test points, okay? I'm trying to think. There might have been 2 of these on the test. I can't remember. You got the study guide?
I got up to number,
Oh, you just write it down? So these would have been like 19 and 20. You probably had that card in.
What's the bonus for the test for you today?
No, it's
So,
when the test.
I'll let
goes
y'all do it until the test day. So if y'all don't bring it here, you can just email it to me. It's pretty easy bonus this time. I think I just had a synthetic division and then one for a domain, and I can't remember, the other one might have made y'all do some foiling or something. But it wasn't like that f of x minus h stuff on that
Yes.
second bonus.
And you just add that to the test score, right?
Huh?
And you just add the bonus to the test score, right?
Mhm. So like if you tested and you gave me a bonus and you're seeing a 95, it's gonna go to a 100.
So it's 5 points.
Mm-hmm. That's what a grade in college algebra ain't bad.
No, it's not, never.
Especially on the bonus you can work at home.
Especially on the bonus, you can work it home.
There you go, you know. If y'all was in class, that'd probably be more,
Complex.
well, it'd probably be more pressure on you, because I'd make you do the bonus on the test.
Mhm.
But this
Added
way,
stress.
I don't, what makes me mad is on the math lab, you can't add the bonuses into the test because it treats it like 21 questions instead of 20. And you can't isolate one question and tell it to be just a bonus for it, you know, so.
So then when we took our test 2, once we seen our score, did that include our bonus?
Yeah, what I usually do is wait till y'all are testing and then I'll go in and start adding all them bonuses in there and stuff. So I'm trying to catch, so if your tests don't change, then let me know, so I must have missed it or something, okay? I'm trying to catch them all in my emails and then some bring them to me in class and stuff, you know, so.
Thursday is practice for the test.
Huh?
Thursday is practice for the test.
So we'll do the study guide Thursday. And I think I got a Zoom video of that already anyway, if you don't, but we'll do it live in here like we're doing.
Okay.
So y'all can go through it with me. Okay? So easy day today, I guess. I'll see y'all Thursday.
Yes, sir.
Y'all have a good one.
You too, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna stop recording.